No, the legal notice at 7:30.
And where is it?
And where is no legal notice?
No, where is it to happen?
Here.
Well, we'll sit.
Okay. So if anyone has any public comments on a topic other than the ordinance establishing a golf authority, we'll entertain them. Hearing none, then we'll just continue on with our agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bob. Just state your name and address.
Robert Gregg, Old Quarry Road. A couple of quick questions. On the deal with Toll Brothers, I've been told that they will cut into the first hole of the golf course, and that will change it from a par 5 to a par 4. Is that correct?
That was initially correct, but I think that's going to be changed. There'll be no effect on the golf course at all. But we'll have further information on that for Tuesday night.
And I've also been told that Toll Brothers has been given a right of first refusal on the land east of Woodfield Road.
That was in the negotiations, but that no longer is a factor. They will not be given a right of first refusal.
Thank you.
I have a question. If this development is going to come about, are they going to?
Just have your name and address.
I'm Sally Pashota, 18 Janet Lane, Woodbridge, and I'm concerned about the tennis courts. Are they going to be eliminated?
No, under the proposal, there'll be 4 tennis courts. 2 will be eliminated.
Okay. Are we here to discuss the Toll Brothers, or are we here to discuss what?
We're going to have a public discussion, a public information session on the Toll Brothers proposal on next Tuesday night at 6 o'clock at the center.
And this is for the what?
The public hearing tonight is for the ordinance establishing a golf authority.
The golf, okay. I understand that. I was kind of, I was hearing Toll Brothers.
Okay. Well, Mr. Gregg had a question.
Okay. Okay.
Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Deborah Judelson, 30 Pleasant Hill Road, Woodbridge. So the question is, so if we have a discussion, if we don't have a discussion about this whole project, I mean, it seems absurd to sort of break it up into little bits. I mean, I think there are a lot of us here, at least I can speak for a number of people I've spoken to, who in general think that this whole notion is bad, and so we would like to have it discussed as a whole. Is there any way that we can do that so everybody can make their comments heard at these points instead of breaking it up into a million little bits?
Well, the matter tonight to be discussed, we have a public hearing established, we have a process. If we want to adopt an ordinance, we have an ordinance committee that makes a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
But what do you need the ordinance for if we are opposed to the project? I mean, you don't need a golf authority.
Well, that's different. That's entirely different than the Toll Brothers.
No, but it's all part of the same picture.
Well, it's different, I'm going to tell you, it's different.
So
We're talking about passing it.
Whether or not you do the residential development or the...
Whether we do the residential development or not.
You want to establish a golf commission?
Correct.
And could you then, why don't you just tell us why it's necessary to have a golf commission as opposed to just have things voted on as a matter of, public discussion?
Well, the purpose of having a golf authority or golf commission is to have oversight over the running of the golf course, the country club.
Why can that not be done? I mean, the way it's been done up to this point, you hire somebody? Yeah, but...
That's a possibility to do that through that commission?
Well, but why don't we do it the way we've been doing it now?
Because it takes a lot of time to do this. This is something that, just like we have a recreation commission or a library commission to oversee those operations. So that's the purpose of this.
Well, so why can't those, I mean, to be honest, I don't see what the big deal is. You've got public works department, it needs public works, what's the big deal here?
All right, okay, we've heard your comment.
No, I want to hear why, you didn't give me a reason why those...
I just given you a reason. You want to comment?
Maybe I can sort of give you a reason. First of all, you're correct that regardless of what happens with Toll Brothers, if the town meeting votes it down or approves it, there's a continued operation of the facility that's known as the Country Club of Woodbridge. And I think the Board of Selectmen intends to continue that facility. So the reason why we need to have a golf authority now is in the past we have had a company, the past 3 years, has operated the golf course, the swimming pool, and the tennis club.
Could you speak up, please?
Well, let me just go see if this is on.
It should be if it's
Yeah,
red.
that doesn't have in the past, we've had a company, MDM, who has operated the golf course, the swimming pool, and the tennis courts. That company will not be doing it next year. What we need to do is we need to have a group of people, citizens, appointed by the Board of Selectmen, to either find another company who will do exactly what has been happening in the past, or explore other possibilities of operation of the golf course. The only reason that a committee, a commission, or authority is needed is for some group of people who are interested in this to be charged with the responsibility of gathering information and make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, who will have the ultimate decision. So it's like any other board or commission. We have a planning and zoning commission that has a defined purpose. We have a conservation commission that has a defined purpose. And this commission authority will have a defined purpose to gather information and make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen.
Why are you not having the same person continue on taking care of the golf course? I understand it's successful, I understand it's run well, what's the deal?
We had extensive negotiations with Mr. Manchetti, looking for a long-term arrangement. And one of the proposals that was made, that we would give him an option to purchase after 20 years. And we explored that with our bankruptcy counsel. And it was determined that if we did such a thing and he went into bankruptcy, I'm not saying he's going into, but if that potential happened, then we would be at risk for the value of what we paid for this golf course in relation to what its value is as a golf course. And so that would put the taxpayers of Woodbridge at risk.
We're at risk already.
Yeah. Well, we've already made the decision to buy that, so that's history. We agreed to pay $7 million, we'll go to the special town meeting, over 90% of those in attendance voted in favor of doing that. So, I mean, you can question that or not, but that was the vote. And now what we're trying to do here in the long term is to come up with a plan to pay for this. Pay for this open space with an income stream, either by managing the golf course.
This isn't an income
Well,
stream.
let me
This is a
finish.
one-time, first of all, this is a one-time payment, and it is a deferred purchase, so that it won't be purchased for a couple of years, so that you don't get anything in the first couple of years. So I don't understand. It's not a long-term, if you sell off the land, there's nothing long-term about it. You know, you can't keep taking this, I'm sorry, but I have this feeling that you keep wanting to sell off a piece and a piece and a piece. There are no conservation easements on it, and so in the end, we have no land to pay for the debt, and I mean, this is just crazy. I mean, it's totally crazy.
No, the proposal is to sell off 17 acres to maintain the country club as a country club, retain the
But
rest,
it's
let me
a
finish,
Please, let him finish.
retain the rest of the land. It will be an immediate payment of approximately $2 million, plus, it's true, when those townhouses are completed, there will be a revenue stream. Now, yes, it takes time, let me finish. It takes time to build the houses to get the revenue stream, but if we waited 2 years and thought that this would happen, it would still be 2 years beyond that.
But
And
we're looking for a
right
payment
now,
of 300 and something thousand next year.
right now, there's no way to get a revenue stream at all, except to look seriously at this proposal. If the town doesn't want the revenue stream, yes, it'll start, we'll get $1 million some odd immediately, and the second half of the payment will be in 18 months. And when the townhouses are completed, there will be a revenue stream.
But there's also a cell tower that has to be moved as part of this.
That's absolutely true, and that's
And that takes off the $2 million that you're claiming we're gonna get, so we're not getting $2 million.
$2.2 million minus the cost of moving the cell tower to a maximum of $400,000. Yes, so the purchase price could theoretically be $1.8 million.
Right.
But it's $1.8 million more than we have now,
And
there's
there's maintenance still, deferred maintenance on the facility. Then, I mean, and how much is that?
but we've had the deferred maintenance whether or not we got $1.8 million and a revenue stream from real estate taxes in the future.
So maybe you want
The
to
ma-
bulldoze the clubhouse, so you don't have the maintenance. I mean, there are other, I'm not suggesting
There are
that's the only
many
option.
options in relation to the clubhouse, one of which is we could only occupy part of it or occupy none of it. That's something to be determined in the future.
No,
But-
it should be determined at this point, so that you have an idea of what the options are now, not as you go along.
I
like
just
you
said
do
that
your
is,
plans.
that is an option.
Yeah, but not, it's not for the problem with what's happened so far,
right.
excuse me, I'm sorry.
All right, okay.
The problem is that, no, you let him finish, you let me finish. The problem with what's happened now is that these decisions that should have been made up front before you purchased it are being made as you go along. And that's a problem. It is a real problem, because you end up with more problems as you go along, because you haven't thought this thing through.
We acted at the direction of the special, we acted at the direction of the special town meeting to purchase this property for $7 million. That was the instruction that the voters of the town of
No,
Woodbridge
that is not the
gave to the Board of
voters,
Selectmen.
that's 400 plus
That's
people
not
out
what
of
we are talking
6,000
about.
voters.
All right,
That's
okay.
not the voters, that's
The
400
topic
people.
that we're going to talk about at 7:30 is the ordinance establishing a golf authority. We're going to have a public information session on Tuesday in relation to the toll road proposal. So you can voice all, we'll make a presentation there, and then you can have questions and comments and what have you. Yes, sir.
It would seem to me the room speaks for itself, how the town and the residents. I don't know where the authority of the first selectman comes from to go out and ask for requests for buying part of the property that was bought for open space, and to have a company build on that. Where in the Constitution of the town of Woodbridge does that authority devolve on the first selectman?
It doesn't. It evolves on the special town meeting. We're making a suggestion
Yeah,
to
but there are a
you.
number of ways you could have done that. You could have done it by a referendum, which would have given more people.
But the
A
citizens of Woodbridge don't want this.
A referendum is a possibility.
Good idea.
Go ahead. Yes,
I
ma'am.
live Denise. I'd like to go back to the purpose of this meeting. But somebody, or perhaps Gerald Weiner, gave the definition of this golf committee. But I'd like to sort of hear that as to how do you understand what a golf committee is going to be doing and who will be part of this? I mean, what is their job and who gets appointed and how do you decide that? And what authority do they really have?
All right, well, maybe we should start that hearing then, because I don't know how many more, well, it'll go beyond 7:30 in any event. So this part of the meeting then will be directed to a public hearing on the proposed ordinance establishing a golf authority. Okay, so we all understand that?
Right.
And so just so by way of background, that there are a number of communities in the state of Connecticut, and let me do the script for the public hearing so that we follow the procedures. In accordance with section 4-5B1 of the Charter of the Town of Woodbridge, I now call this public hearing to order to receive comments regarding a proposed new ordinance under Part 1 Administrative Ordinances, Chapter 75, Municipal Agencies, to be listed as Article 17, establishing the Woodbridge Golf Authority. The legal notice was published in the New Haven Register on October 27, 2011. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the legal notice? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Now, the purpose of the proposed new ordinance is to create an authority to operate and maintain and manage the town-owned country club of Woodbridge located on Woodfield Road, which presently consists of a golf course, driving range, swimming pool, tennis courts, clubhouse, and related recreational facilities currently located therein, and any related projects as defined in such enabling acts and as further defined therein. Now, there are approximately 12 municipalities that have either golf commissions or golf authorities. I can list them: Ansonia, Bethel, Brooklyn, Naugatuck, New Haven, Norwalk, Norwich, Ridgefield, Stamford, Stratford, Westport, and Manchester, and there may be others. So I'm now going to ask Attorney Weiner to give us an overview of this proposed ordinance.
And I will just try and describe a little bit about what this ordinance tries to do, and by no means is it the only way to accomplish the goal of having a group of appointed citizens who are interested in serving the town assist in managing the Country Club of Woodbridge. It is not unusual in our town or in any town to have boards and commissions that, as I said before, that are designated to specifically oversee certain areas. Board of Education oversees education. Publicly owned properties oversees the publicly owned properties. Recreation oversees recreation. This just tries to accomplish what we need to have, and that is another entity, whether it's an authority, and by no means is the authority the only way to do it. You can do it by a commission, you can do it by a committee. Every person that is appointed to that entity reports to the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen has the Board of Selectmen, and in certain situations, the Board of Finance have the final say in what direction the management of the Country Club of Woodbridge should take place. And again, that's the reason for this public hearing, is to get comments from the public, to find out what you agree with and what you don't agree with. And I am hopeful, and I know the Board of Selectmen will take those comments. And there may be another way to do this. There are, as I said, there are other ways to do it. This is presented as one way to accomplish the goal of having citizens' input on how to run the country club, with the final say in the Board of Selectmen. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Yes.
May I suggest this meeting be moved to the center if possible to accommodate our citizens that are not being allowed to attend?
No.
Is the center available or some larger space?
I don't know if you can get it open tonight.
I don't think we can do it at this point. I think we're just going to have to bear with it.
Well, could they at least come in, the people outside?
Sure, come on in.
Can they
Sure.
come in?
Come on in.
More chairs?
Right. Is everyone in who wants to come in? No, but we All right. Everyone's going to get a chance to speak, so I'll recognize you as I see you. So, yes, sir. Name and address.
I think everybody should come to the table.
Why don't you, if you want to speak, come to the table.
Otherwise, they won't be on the record. They won't be on the table.
My name is Charlie Ahern, and I think I heard in a list of communities that have golf authorities, you indicated Ansonia. Under what set of circumstances would a community have a golf authority or a golf, whatever, commission, if it didn't have a golf course? Ansonia does not have a golf course.
We were given the name of Ansonia as having a golf authority. I don't know if
Well, way back in the days of Joe Doyle, when he was mayor, he wanted Schreiber Park to be a golf course.
maybe
but-
they don't have it, but that's one of the names.
Okay, so there's no other reason why a community would have.
Not extensive, by the way. Manchester has a golf authority.
He
We just-
indicated Manchester.
Oh, did? Okay. We just try to concentrate it in our areas, Fairfield County, New Haven County, but there are other communities that have
I
golf
think it
authorities.
reflects a little bit of a bad start when the very first community identified is not relevant.
You want to go?
Could I say something?
No,
No, I just want to say something about microphones. I listen to you on the television. Half of you I can't hear because you do not use the microphone. And I'm not deaf. Now that man just stood here and spoke to you. The people behind him, I'm sure, couldn't hear him.
These microphones do not amplify.
Well, they ought to be loud enough. I can always hear you.
All right, okay.
Maybe we need a microphone authority.
Yeah, maybe we do.
My name is Bill Fox. I reside at 18 Tank Woodbridge. My question is for Attorney Weiner, who I believe I understood saying maybe a few minutes ago that whether it's an authority or a commission or a committee, it essentially is the same. So my question is to you, are there special powers granted upon authorities by Connecticut General Statute that gives them the ability, among other things, to separately bond their own expenses? And if that's true, then it's really not accurate to state that an authority is the same as a committee or a commission because of those special powers vested by the state to those authorities. Thank you.
There clearly is a very extensive statute regarding authorities in the state of Connecticut, and it does give extensive powers, including bonding. There is a section in that statute which says the following: provided the ordinance creating the authority may include limitations on the powers and procedures of the authority, which is what we have tried to do in our proposed ordinance. Create limitations on the powers of the authority and reserve the final approval to this Board of Selectmen. It is true that the authority does offer extensive additional opportunities than, say, a commission would, although the Board of Selectmen can give the commission those abilities as well and come back to the Board of Selectmen for final approval. What we try to do here is to limit the powers of the members of the authority. The authority does something that we cannot do with regard to a commission, and that is that any employees of the authority, and I don't know whether they would be employees of the authority as opposed to employees of the town, which sort of makes a difference in terms of the terms of employment that the authority can negotiate with potential employees. You can't do that if you have a commission.
Bill, do I detect from your question that you'd be more comfortable with a commission rather than an authority in reference to these statutes?
I may be, but there would be a proposal that I'd have to review to understand.
I understand.
I might very well
Just a
be.
concept.
I just wanted to make sure that there was a distinction between what is recognized as an authority versus a committee and a commission, because that wasn't clear in some of the earlier comments, and I wanted to make sure.
There definitely is. There's no question.
It's a good
Yes.
point. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, ma'am?
I'd just like,
You just-
refresh my memory.
Name and address.
Oh, my name is Harriet Fast. I live at 19 Inwood Road. I'd like to, you to refresh my memory, because I have no memory. When we purchased this land, was it clearly stated that it was to be maintained and kept as a golf course, etc.?
Is my recollection, it was the intention to keep this as an open space, as a golf course. But in my remarks at that annual town meeting, I said that over the next 2 years, the Board of Selectmen would develop a plan to finance this purchase. And part of that plan is the Toll Brothers thing, which we'll talk about on Tuesday night.
Okay, that's
And the other thing is revenues from the operation of the golf course. Listen, we all share the same thing here. We want to keep our taxes down, and we want to have an income stream to keep this as open space. We all agree on that.
All right, but we
So,
don't want
okay.
to support somebody else's business necessarily.
This is now our business. We own all this, you and me and everybody
Okay.
in this room. And so we're looking for ways to finance this, to make it as easy as we can on the taxpayers. That's what this is all about.
All right, but-
Some people
but I
may
think-
object to having condos, they may not like it aesthetically. Those are all legitimate reasons.
No, I think people, I can't speak for everyone, but I think people are concerned about what the use of the land will be and what the obligation of the taxpayer is going to be given the use of this land. I mean, I just don't see why I have to support a clubhouse for any condos that Toll Brothers builds.
Well, that clubhouse that we own would not be part of the Toll Brothers project,
But
if
they
you will.
would be Woodbridge residents,
They
so
would be.
they would be entitled to use it.
For a fee. They would
Okay.
have to pay a fee, just like
Okay.
you and I
Well,
would.
oftentimes these construction companies build their own clubhouses.
And Toll Brothers in this proposal proposes to do that. A smaller sort of a get-together kind of a facility where you can have coffee or whatever.
But it's still, I'm sorry, it's still not clear to me what was said when we purchased the land, what we were going to do with the land.
Clearly, the intention of everybody there was to keep this as open space.
Yes.
And a golf course is a form of open space. And the unique thing about this open space, it has an income stream that allows us to pay for this. You know, all the other open space that we acquired in the past 20 years, we've done so with state money. The Department of Environmental Protection has financed part of this. This we had to pay, you know, out of our own pocket. So looking at this proposal, what we're trying to do is find an income stream to help pay for this so that we can keep it as open space.
Okay, but why would a commission or whatever we are discussing here be better able to manage this than the professionals, or if it weren't professionals, the board, who were probably businessmen, were not able to manage the country club? Why would we be better able to do this?
Well,
I mean, the economy is worse rather than better.
Just from a framework of how this would work, this so-called golf authority or golf commission would be the oversight. They'd be responsible for overseeing the operation of the golf course. They would hire, if the town were to do it, they would hire the people to run it. Or they would hire a management company like we've had to do that. And they would make those recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, and we would decide. The elected people who've been elected would make that decision.
It's not that the people on the committee will actually get out there and mow the grass and do it.
I understand.
They will be hiring people, professionals to do those chores and carry out those responsibilities. In exchange for hiring, if it's a company, the town would get revenue from those professionals. If it's individuals, we may not have to pay a fee to the management company, and we may be able to make a little bit more money just by hiring an expert to run the swimming pool, an expert to run the tennis courts, and experts to maintain the golf course. Those are all up for discussion for the experts to decide and the Board of Selectmen to make the final decision.
Okay, I don't know who sent this out.
We don't either.
No one knows.
Okay.
Who said this? Who did this?
A good person, I don't know who, but a very good person sent it out.
I just want to know if this is in truth a fact. The question is, how will we pay for the reported more than $2 million in renovations needed at the clubhouse? Why has that major expense gone unmentioned? Is there anything about the clubhouse in any of these plans? Because that building has been a money pit for many years.
That building is in need of substantial capital improvements. I don't know where this $2 million number came from. But the money to do that, or the proposal would be, if the Toll Brothers proposal was approved, and if it's built out as anticipated, that would more than pay off the debt service over 20 years of the $7 million. So then we have the operation of the golf course, and there will be, however it's run, there will be monies available to the town from that operation, which could be invested for the capital improvements to be made. And that would be a decision we'd have to make as to what capital improvements we would make. Do we want to continue to run a restaurant there or not? I don't know the answers yet to that.
Right, but who would make the decision on whether the clubhouse would even, be kept going, or if it should be knocked down and,
Eventually, it'd be the
metal
Board,
go for
it'd be the
scrap
Board
or
of Selectmen that would make that decision.
But what about the golf?
No, they would only be advisory to us. We would make the decision. The buck is going to stop here with us.
Okay, but once you have this golf authority, does that mean that the townspeople no longer are able to influence the selectmen except by voting them out of office or something like that?
Well, that's an opportunity, but that possibility. Sure, you can influence us. You know, we're going to have the same interest. We want to do this in a fiscally prudent manner. And this is, we're giving you as a proposal. Some people may like it, some people may not. But that we're trying to do our part of the job to make this work. That's what we're trying to do.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you for asking the question. Yes, sir.
Claude Britton, Litchfield Turnpike. Earlier, prior to the start of this, in comments, Someone mentioned the word risk in reference to the 20-year lease to own. After summarily rejecting that, the risk that has been created, you still need to hire the full staffing. You have zero equipment available to you, so you're starting at nothing. You've already lost 1 to 2 years worth of events, a lot of risk there. During this time, another public course is opened up in town, so definitely big hit to the revenue stream. The people involved in this new board and commission might or might not have had a great deal to do with the original country club being purchased by the town to begin with. So how is this less risk than going back to the 20-year lease and the guaranteed money?
I think the risk that I was talking about is if the person who was making this proposal went into bankruptcy, then we would be at risk as to the value of what our asset was.
So $7 million versus the
$7
potential
million
loss,
could have been reduced to $3.5 million.
as opposed to the potential loss of tens of millions of dollars of business?
But it's only worth $3 million anyway.
I don't follow you.
If we don't get the guaranteed money, you have a group of professionals now at Oak Lane. We have nothing in place here. And our proposal is to put amateurs in charge of righting the ship.
Amateurs?
So, what would be the annual lowball amount of revenue that was guaranteed by MDM? $1 million, $2 million before?
Actually, under his proposal, he said that if Oak Lane came into being as a public course, which apparently it will, then he would reduce whatever his amount was by that. But,
you know,
we
the
own
town.
this, and what we're trying to do is make this work.
So wouldn't it have been, you know, and forgive me for saying to spend more money, wouldn't it have been reasonable to think that maybe the town, for a very minor investment, should have maybe invested another $2 million or $1.5 million, parceled that out, made a few lots, maybe sold that property off, and
So you're
protected
saying to
Woodbridge
sell
Country
more?
Club? No, I'm saying that maybe we should have protected our interest in Woodbridge Country Club by taking over Oak Lane too. I mean, there was this big outcry that we needed to save Woodbridge Country Club. A few people had somebody's ear, and away it went. All of a sudden, Oak Lane came, went, nobody said boo. Now we have competition against our town. We're gonna lose 25%, 50%, half of our revenue. And that wasn't even a thought. We have commissions in place, public owned property for one, that none of this was ever broached in.
If you remember the proposal, the reason why the Woodbridge Country Club was a strategic parcel of land in our town.
Oak Lane isn't?
No, I'll tell you the difference. Oak Lane certainly is. Woodbridge has sewer and water, which opens up a significant amount of other possible development. Oak Lane does not. And I think the town meeting, when you voted to approve it, everybody was considering the potential for something that would be really adverse to the best interest of the town. And the town meeting all decided that it was worth going to bid to prevent unfettered, unrestricted, unplanned development at the Woodbridge Country Club.
There couldn't have been
What?
Excuse me, but I understand that that property is zoned in a certain way, and so if I understand zoning, then that's not unfettered, because if they wanted to change the use, they would have had to appear in front of zoning. Is that not correct?
Under the law, if you have sewer and water, there's certain kind of developments that zoning cannot keep out, even if you have zoning regulations that on its face prevent that from happening.
And what are those?
Those are cluster housing, affordable housing, and other types of projects that we thought, that the town meeting thought would not be consistent with the town of Woodbridge best interest.
I think it's the water and the sewer, it doesn't extend.
Somebody
very
has
far
the
to
floor.
property. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know parliamentary procedure,
Okay.
but
It's just
I just
courtesy.
didn't want
Somebody
that
has the
deceit.
floor. Let him finish.
I'm sorry, Susan.
In rebuttal to that, then why did last February we invite exactly what we chose to keep out
Yeah,
in?
the fence.
What?
Toll Brothers.
No, Toll Brothers is age-restricted, 55 and older housing.
It's the density.
Those are legitimate discussions that could happen on November 15, but it's a different type of development of the property, and the town, by owning Woodbridge, controls that type. If we didn't own it, another developer could have done numerous things other than age-restricted housing.
Oh, excuse me.
Okay, Mr. Pine?
Step up. Please do. Hi, Chuck Pine, 162 Center Road. Couple of things. Number one, I am going to try to keep the comments to the Golf Authority. But I will tell you that the questions that we're hearing before us now are exactly the questions that should have been on this board's mind before the $7 million was dropped on us, okay? I know that there was a lot of emotion in the gym. I was in the gym that night, and there was a movement to buy that property. But you, as the Board of Selectmen, have an obligation to go beyond the emotion of the room and to get to the facts. And there were tons of facts that were simply not available to us that are now starting to bite us in the rear end. And part of it is how we're going to pay the $7 million. So now we sit here again without a long-term strategy for that property. This is knee-jerk, and we had this conversation at the board meeting a few weeks ago. The difference is there are a lot more people here now with a lot more ideas. I would say that although the Golf Authority is certainly a different issue on the table this evening, the Golf Authority is very much linked to the future of this property and the future of the town. And my public comment is that I think we ought to bury the idea of a Golf Authority. The idea of another layer or arm of government, I think, is a lousy idea right now. And I think that we need to slow roll this project. I've not heard any other legitimate alternatives to what a Golf Authority could be or to what could be done with this property. And I think we need to see a lot more alternatives presented in toto, not in pieces. And I think as a town we can make a much more intelligent decision. But I think any move that we make now is going to be knee-jerk, short-sighted, and incomplete on the facts. And I'm going to urge everybody in the town to not do anything until you guys do a lot more homework and bring back to it.
Next? No, you've already spoken. Anyone else want to? Yes, sir.
There's a man back there.
Hi, my name is Paul White. I live at 9 Pease Road. A lot of the emotion in this room, I think, is caused by the fact that nobody really knows what's going on. The fact that the town didn't send out that green letter that was taped to my mailbox on Saturday is particularly frightening. And I think the communication needs to be much better with the people in the town. Nobody here seems to know what the meeting's about. Nobody seems to know what we're really talking about. And nobody seems to be anything other than nervous because of it. And so communication has to be much better. That's my first public comment. Second public comment is in support of the other gentleman before me. We need to see the facts on the table. You all have the same goals we do. That's absolutely clear. We all need to work together, and I think the start of that is communicating much better. The third point is we don't need to operate at the haste that we did before. There's no reason to slam dunk this. And so those three things go together: communication, timing, and fact checking. Thank you.
Good evening, Donald Salato, Knollwood Road. Mr. Weiner, you know better. You can read the Connecticut statutes. The statute that you briefly, cursorily referenced regarding the powers of an authority grant in the main to an authority powers and responsibilities and duties that dwarf any powers and responsibilities and duties of any traditional Town of Woodbridge board or commission. And to sit here and tell us that that even though there's limiting language in the state statute, this is still gonna be like any other town board or commission, and the Board of Selectmen is going to have the final say, is just straining the credulity of people who are as smart as you are and who can read. And if you're saying that it's gonna be business as usual, I suggest that you go back to an idea that came to you about 3 years ago when we bought this property, and you established a committee specifically to manage the property, which never meets anymore. As a matter of fact, the Woodbridge Country Club Committee had in front of you a few minutes ago its vice chair, Mr. Fox. He hasn't been summoned to a meeting. He wasn't included in these discussions about the future of this property, even though he's on a duly constituted committee that you established 3 years ago, specifically chartered to handle these sorts of things. And Mr. Weiner referenced Q-Pop. Can anyone tell us the last time Q-Pop met?
A year ago.
And finally, this notion that somehow we're all about the same thing here, we all want the same thing, I don't think so. I think some people are most concerned about some fiscal deal and saving a few dollars. I am concerned about maintaining and enhancing the traditions of this town, including neighborhoods, good, open, responsible government, and candor.
My name is Hillel Auerbach, 20 Chestnut Lane, Woodbridge. I have not heard any sentiment from this audience in favor of your proposal. And so at the end of my comments, I want to call the question, and let's get out of here. But I want to point out that I attended the meeting at which this property was voted to be purchased. And it was my understanding that we, the town, were promised that the rental income from the operator would be sufficient to service the $7 million of debt. And that the only thing that it would cost the town, because I asked the question, was the taxes that we were otherwise getting from the Woodbridge Country Club. At that time, $150,000. So the cost that was presented to the meeting that approved the purchase was that we would acquire this property for $7 million. The rental from the operator would cover the debt service, and our cost for acquiring this open space, this golf club, would be $150,000 a year, adjusted for whatever the mill rate would become. Now, my question to this board and to Mr. Weiner and to Mr. Sheehy is, what happened? Why are we where we are today without an operator, without an income for debt service? Never mind the fact that we're losing the tax dollars that we were getting from the country club. So, I move the question.
There's no question.
There's no proposal to adopt a...
You're opposed to adopting a golf authority?
I'm opposed, but I want to have a vote on it.
I second that.
Michael Hill from 963 Center Road. I just want to, first of all, it's great to see so many town people come out for an issue. I was on and am on the.
What happened to the plan? That was his question, right?
Was he done? I'm sorry.
This is a public hearing to get your comments on the proposed golf authority, and that's what we're receiving. Okay?
My question was a little bit rhetorical.
Yeah.
I would like to have a vote on the proposal to have a golf commission authority,
Golf
because I think that we're going to vote it down. So let's get on with it.
This is to get your input on the proposed ordinance establishing a golf authority.
This is a public hearing.
This is not a vote, you know. Yes, sir. Mr. Elfenbein, go ahead.
I'd like to point out that I was on the golf liaison committee, and during that, the charter was not to manage the finances of the club. It was a liaison committee, of which I represented the rec commission. The economic development committee was represented, conservation commission was represented, and we were all duly informed. And this idea has been on the table for months and months and months. And I understand that many people here are concerned about this, but the information has been there all along. Talk about a knee-jerk.
Please, let us speak.
Watch channel 79. It's been. Oh, excuse me, but you all want to come down when you have this knee-jerk reaction to something you don't like. It would be great to see this many people come and voice their concern and about Board of Ed and other issues too. I mean, the information is there if you want it. Just about everyone that stepped up here tonight did not have the right information. They did not seek out and get the right information. And some folks that like to snicker in the peanut gallery, that instigate a lot of this, don't have their facts straight. So I don't think everyone here is against this. I would say the majority, but just as this community member here pointed out, there was 400 people that showed up that cared to vote about that. Not everyone that is for this is here tonight either. So that's what I have to say.
Aren't you gonna clarify the facts? What don't we know? I'd like to know
It would
what
be
we
a
don't
litany, and the Board of Selectmen can address each and every one of these things if they want.
I just wanted to know, you're claiming that we're all here, we don't know.
Just so you know, the revenue has covered the debt service to date. As a matter of fact, we are, how much did it cost since Mr. Mincchetti's been on? Couple $100,000. And let me just also add that the liaison committee that Mr. Salato referred to, of which Mr. Fox is a member, made a recommendation in 2010 to develop a portion of the Woodbridge Golf Course that adjoins Woodfield Road. And the Conservation Commission, in May of 2010, unanimously voted to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they develop a parcel on Woodfield Road, sell it off. Exactly what we're doing here. So this hasn't been any surprise at all. We're actually following the lead of these commissions. Yes?
Can you speak to that? This is just a quick, I want to clarify, Mr. Helfenbein, Allison Rossi, 109 Ansonia Road. I just want to clarify, I don't know if the website is up to date, but the last meeting of QPOP has been over, the last monthly meeting of QPOP has been over a year. So I'm not sure that they were involved in this. The last monthly meeting of the Economic Development Commission was May, because my husband's on the commission and they haven't met. So, and I'm not sure when the last meeting that you had was.
About a year.
So, I just do think it's misinformation.
They last met in March.
March, okay. I do think it's misinformation to state that these committees have been involved and been in the loop, and they've been meeting, because I really don't think that that's the case. So,
Well, I'm just telling you what recommendations they made.
No, this is countering Mr. Helfenbein, what he just, the comments. that he
Okay,
just
next,
made.
someone who hasn't spoken.
Can I please finish with what I was saying before I was interrupted? No, I mean, our finance director has just clearly stated that we were making money, and what I was getting at, you said we were in the plus, right?
I said that the debt service, the difference between the revenues collected by the third-party operator and the debt service and the cost to pay the debt service, there's a difference between those funds.
Yes, positive difference.
Correct.
Okay. My last question that I started to get out was, Matt was running it successfully. You guys have stated that just now.
He was.
No one else is interested in running it. Who is this committee going to get to run it?
Well, they have a number of options. They have the town.
What I understand is you searched for those options and one person showed up, and you just kicked them out.
The town can run it itself. Like a number of these. That's an option.
My name is James.
Can't hear.
Turn up the AC. James.
That doesn't amplify you.
It doesn't, no. James Urbano, Vice Chairman, Woodbridge Conservation Commission. And I think there's some inaccuracy on the floor. I wanted to correct it. The position of the Conservation Commission on this, and it was a unanimous vote, Ed, you're correct. Residents who fear the purchase should know that protecting the golf course does not require permanent town ownership. We see town ownership as a temporary bridge to permanent protection of the land. After the protections are in place, the golf course can be sold to a private operator, open to the public, yet remain on the tax rolls. You've been talking about income stream, tax income, property tax revenue is an income stream. We had that, and we can still have that. I think you've done a great service in soliciting a proposal from Toll Brothers, because what that's done is defined the development value of those 19 acres. We know that some development on the Woodbridge Country Club has a value of about $2 million, using your numbers, Tony. If that ever happened, and if that was sold to the Toll Brothers, is there any value remaining to the golf course? Yes or no?
I think yes.
All right, so that added to the $2 million, ultimately, is the value that we would have if we sold the whole thing. I've heard Matt Giglietti at last week's meeting say he thought the value was 3 to 3.5 million of the golf course, not the development parcel. We add the two together, we have 5.5 million if we sell that thing. We don't need a golf authority to administer it. If our interest is revenue, we can get our $166,000 back again, pay down $4 or $5 million in debt. That income stream is more than sufficient to satisfy the remaining debt with money left over. If we attract better development, more limited, I think you heard testimony last week from Jay Alpert and Mr. Rosen that the Toll Brothers proposal would damage the golf course. Well, if there was a more limited proposal defined by the town, not defined by a few people, but defined by the town, possibly on the other side of Woodfield Road, or less on the golf course side, we have the great possibility of generating even more taxable income without having the town to manage it, without having the prospect of the danger of this thing. 15 pages, the enabling powers. I'm not going to bore you by getting into them. Widespread powers. Why wasn't this attached, by the way, to the ordinance?
What are you referring to?
This is the state statute, the state statute, the enabling authority. Why wasn't this attached to the 3 pages the town sent out of curiosity? You would think one would inform the townspeople, give them an opportunity to see what's involved.
Jim, if I can respond to your first question, the resolution you read is not the one that Ed is referring to. He's referring to a resolution that was passed by the Conservation Commission after the purchase of the property and in May of 2010. Your board did a resolution, and we have it someplace, I don't know where, which said the Conservation Commission recommends that the property at Woodfield Road and Johnson Road be sold for planned development, for some type of development. We have those minutes.
Not independent of the golf course.
Let me finish.
It was to enhance the value of the golf course.
Okay, let me finish about the value of the golf course. You said this, that's absolutely true. There's no question about that.
Not separate values.
With protections.
With protections, it was all part of the equation.
Okay, now let me address
the
the value of the remaining 130 acres, whatever it is. You say that there is a value, and I agree there is a value. Unfortunately, for somebody to, and we explored this, for somebody to operate a golf course in 2011 is not the most attractive business proposal available. So let me finish. They will pay, no one wants to. We have a consultant who manages golf courses around the country, and he said there's no real market for us to be able to get what the town needs to offset its debt. Let me say one. And moreover, and your proposal about putting a conservation easement on the property, if it's sold, is not a bad one. A conservation easement, in my humble estimation, would severely reduce the market value of the property of the golf course, because a developer or a golf course operator will have to buy it knowing if the golf industry falls apart, he can do nothing else with that property other than maintain a golf course and a swimming pool. So it limits the marketability and the
Jerry, I agree with
appealability.
you. I agree that it would limit the marketability. That's why we need to define beforehand where the development can be, how much development, the rest is protected. So a developer going in needs to see that. You're absolutely correct. He needs to know what the potential is. How many condos, 20 or 30 condos? Can you do some other sort of structure that could, an inn or something to that effect to generate revenue? It's up to the developer to decide that.
Are you talking about other than the 17 acres, in addition to the 17 acres?
I'm saying.
It's 19 acres.
It's 19 acres.
17 acres.
But I think that's too intensive a development, frankly, because it damages the value of the golf course, as has been stated by users of the golf course. Less than 19 acres.
That is all.
But there's more land across the street on Woodfield as well. That does not impact the golf course at all.
Let me just say
We need a professional to look at that, a planner. Let it be defined, put that in an RFP, give it to a commercial realtor with national strength who can market
Jim,
this in front of
the
buyers.
proposal as revised will not affect the golf course at all. It's 17 acres, and it will not affect the first
You don't know
hole.
what somebody else might want to do with those 17
But
acres.
what I want to find out from you, if I understand what you're saying, is that you think that this idea with the Toll Brothers proposal is a good one?
No, the only thing that was good is that you ascertain the value.
Okay,
That was- not that Toll Brothers are not a good developer, nothing we should have in Woodbridge.
But your proposal is to sell the golf course, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, it is. I'm asking Mr. Urbana what his proposal is.
Yes,
I want to hear that.
And it's been consistent since May 2009. As I read to you, it can remain a golf course, the facilities there can remain, the land needs to be protected, excepting a very limited area where the townspeople define what can go there.
Okay, so I just wanted
to enhance the value.
So I understand what you're saying, so you would sell the golf course with a conservation restriction, is that right?
Accepting the limited.
It reduces the value, we'll say for the sake of argument, to $3.5 million, right? Just for the sake of argument.
Not at all.
No.
That has value as a golf course.
Yeah,
It has-
what do you think that value is with a conservation easement?
We need a professional to state that, not a consultant who's working.
You need an
the town is
appraiser,
paying,
okay, all right.
where the town has a preconceived conclusion.
So then, you would be in favor of doing that, selling the golf course with a conservation restriction, and then.
Protecting it, yes.
And then you see this value of the Toll Brothers proposal, well, you're not in favor of that, setting a value of $2 million.
Let's not use Toll Brothers. I'm saying limited development defined by the town, together with the golf course, to a single operator developer who can do a coordinated development. Because the Toll Brothers development can do something that takes value away from the golf course. It needs to be a single operator development.
So you're talking about packaging this,
Yes.
selling it at the golf course and then the adjacent land to be developed.
As the city of New Haven does when it markets a development site.
And whatever shortfall there would be from the $7 million, we'd eat it.
Well, we
Quick,
know.
quick, with tax.
We
Back
have-
in tax.
yeah.
You get it back in tax?
$166,000 in tax revenue, not counting whatever additional revenue we get from whatever that development is.
So then the big question is there somebody out there who wants to buy this?
And we've not,
Well, we sent out a request for proposal in September of 2010, you
That's not how real estate is
know?
marketed today. That's not how it's done. That's if I wanted not to sell the golf course, I'd put it in that journal. If I wanted to sell it, I'd hire a national commercial
We didn't
realtor.
put it in that journal to sell the golf course. We put it in that journal to get development on them 17 acres.
But there are professionals where it wouldn't even cost the town. You define the commission ahead of time, and it's only paid if the golf course is sold.
Jim, I respect your opinion. I personally believe, and you people may not agree, that there is no market for a golf course in the entire United States. That's my own personal opinion. Let me finish. Let me finish. No one is coming forward to buy a golf course. There is a market for 17 acres right now. We can only deal with what we have. We have 17 acres a national company has made a proposal on to build 50 some odd units. That's what we have. That's for the town to decide whether we should do it or not. And that's going to happen on November 30th. There's an informational session November 15th. That is up to you. If you feel you don't want to do it, it's going to be turned down, and that's the end of story.
Thank you.
Yes.
Lisa Cunningham, 89 Pease Road. I'd like to just suggest that what Jim has proposed at least be pursued, to see if it's a possibility or not. But I'm actually here to talk about the agenda topic of specifically authorities. I noted that in the proposal, under required reports, it says the authority shall file a written report of its actions, and further down it says Board of Selectmen will have the power to investigate the authority's activities, which to me suggests that the selectmen will be reviewing activities after the fact. To move on to the last part of the proposal, applicable definitions, the Connecticut general statutes. Jim was showing how lengthy that is. I've boiled it down considerably to just a few items that I would very much appreciate answers to. I certainly appreciate why Board of Selectmen does not want to be in the business of managing a golf course. It's not appropriate, it's, you don't have the time, expertise, and so forth.
So you agree with the concept?
Absolutely, no question. But when you look at what the state guidelines indicate is an authority, specifically that definition, I think it would be really misguided, if I understand this correctly, for us to be turning over the extent of powers outlined here. For instance, an authority would have full and complete control without regard to the provisions of any other law for the provided the ordinance creating the authority, specifically, presumably, the Board of Selectmen, may include limitations on the powers and procedures of the authority. So I don't see outlined here those limitations. And I don't see how we can approve an authority until we really understand what those limitations are. Also, provided no project shall be constructed in any municipality if it's inconsistent with the plan of conservation and development for the municipality, except with the approval of the planning commission of such municipality. So again, what would Woodbridge's constraints be? Will there be an opportunity for review of projects by the town commissions? That's not addressed here at all. Again, what I read was that the Board of Selectmen will be reviewing things after the fact. Will a referendum be required for proposals of a certain magnitude? And if so, what are those guidelines? Further down, section 7, 132D, and this goes to, I think, B. Such authority is authorized and empowered to sell or dispose of any property or interest therein at any time, to lease all or any part of any project, or related or unrelated to the public uses of the project, but necessary and feasible for the financing and operating of that project. It also would regulate the uses of the lands and facilities under control of the authority, subject to land use regulations of the municipality in which such lands or facilities are located. So again, what are the regulations here? What can and can't be done and wouldn't be done without town approval? Could they go ahead based on this definition with a wind turbine, a cell tower? Can they pave paradise and put up a parking lot, as the song goes?
Or sell a golf course.
And what are the ways in which this town actually would have some oversight? Again, if you read this...
Let me see if I can just summarize. You understand the concept of having some commission, say, oversee the golf course. So if we were to come back with an ordinance that said that, forget about this statute, take the statute out of it completely. That'd be okay, right?
that would,
Somebody has to do it. Somebody has to do it.
excuse me,
Someone has to do
sir, I
it.
would like to hear
Excuse me.
Louisa finish. You interrupted Louisa.
No,
I would really like to hear her finish.
she is
She
gonna
did, you
finish.
interrupted her, and I really want to
Well,
hear Mrs.
I did
Cunningham
not
finish.
intend to interrupt her.
I know,
I have too
so
much respect
could she
for her.
finish what she's
Can
saying?
I answer one?
Louisa, go ahead.
Can I
I guess
answer?
not. I guess
Can I
you let
answer?
him finish.
If I may.
Thank you.
Because I think there are a lot of people who have not read this, and I think really need to understand, again, the link was not available, and it may be purely an oversight, but it really is worth reading through this. Unless otherwise provided by the ordinance creating the authority, again, the Board of Selectmen, bonds may be issued without obtaining the consent of any commission, board, bureau, or agency of the state, or of any political subdivision, and without any other proceedings or the happening of other conditions or things than those proceedings, conditions or things which are specifically required by said sections. Further down, it says that the ordinance creating the authority may include limitations on the powers and procedures of the authority, provided no project shall be constructed in any municipality if it's inconsistent with the plan of conservation. So, you know, again, I've already reviewed the point that we don't know nearly enough about what the town's limitations would be, and if they're significant, and I think at the level that most people here would expect, I don't understand why it would even be called an authority and why it's not another commission.
Can I answer a couple of very quick questions? And you have great points. That section that you just read, the limitations, is the most important part of our proposed authority.
But not included, please.
But and it does make reference. Our ordinance does make reference to section 1-70W, which you just identified. But let me tell you, you said that the authority would have the power to sell, lease real estate. The authority will not own any land. The town of Woodbridge owns the land. If you don't own the land, you can't do anything with the land. And there is never an intention on the Board of Selectmen to give the authority the land. As a matter of fact, if they did, it would have to have a special town meeting, and they'd have to be out of their minds to even do that. So this authority, some authorities in Connecticut, they actually buy the golf courses or the property. They do have the opportunity to sell and lease. That is not the intent here. There would be no concern that they will have any ability to affect that land, which will remain to be owned by the town. There is never an intent, and I can understand why you have the confusion, but there's never an intent when this ordinance was drafted to give the authority any powers without coming back to the Board of Selectmen.
Which
And
is
you read
exactly
the,
why
you
it
read
should be
the key.
commission, not
Right.
an authority.
Right. If
That would simplify.
It would simplify a lot, and there's no devotion to the term authority or to an authority. It could be a
Well, then
commission.
you shouldn't reference the state statute then, because that is exactly, I mean, I thought it was a
That's what the public-
lousy term
that's
until
what-
I realized it
right.
really was an official term.
That's what the public hearing is for.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes.
Just a couple of comments. Michael Broderick, 5 Old Still Road and 1746 Litchfield Turnpike. I just wanted to address, because the authority or commission, it sounds like there's some weight now that maybe this group favors a commission. But I also want to just talk about the general idea of how this came to us. And I think it didn't come to us in a very good way. As a town veterinarian, I just hear things off the cuff. That's how I found out about it. And I think that the board is making some serious errors, because the proposal that is in front of us is not really in sync with our plan of conservation and development, which was done when I was on the commission. So I'm very aware of it. That never anticipated having an age-restricted community in that area, because there isn't public sewer and water that comes right up there. It's down in Fountain Street. So then it opens up a lot of other questions that the board should also be thinking about. It opens up for further development in the area, for more multifamily type housing, because once that's in the area, then other properties could also potentially tap in. The other thing that also, and I was at the meeting when the country club was bought, it was not anticipated that under the control of the board would want to make such major changes to a neighborhood like this would. This is absolutely changing the total use of the area from single-family development to multifamily development, which, by the way, there's only one zone that we have in our town that has public water and public sewer, and that was an approved development down along Bradley Road that still hasn't been built because of the economics. And I think it's also disingenuous that the board comes before the town and talks to the town people about how we only can get one developer. Well, we're in the worst market that we've seen since the Great Depression. You know, the town has the luxury of making the development not in a rushed way, as was cited before, but doing this in a very, very thoughtful manner, bring in many points of view, and not like trying to solve a fiscal problem in a very incorrect way, which is what I think you're doing with the Toll Brother proposal. And I think all of the Golf Authority Commission, it's all tied together, and I think it's a very, very bad idea, and I don't think the town should have come before the people and said, do we want multifamily development in a single-family zone? It is such a major change from how our town's been developed anywhere else. And I can tell you, when I was on the commission, we turned down multifamily developments in single-family zones off of Ansonia Road and other places just for those reasons. And why are we, as the town people, having to react to the board when normally it's a developer proposing it, not our own board that's supposed to be protecting our town interests and keeping our town, keeping our town to have the same flavor that I've lived here since 1976 that it has had. So that's my question.
You know, the one thing, Mr. Broderick, the one thing you did say, you talked about the town plan of conservation and development, and yet and everybody should know that if the town will have the opportunity to debate whether they want this kind of housing on November 30th. It cannot happen unless the town approves it. That's the way it's generally done. A proposal is brought to the town. The reason the town is doing this is because we own the property. That's why the developer's not. The town owns it, and we gotta get permission to do it. If the town says no, it's not done. But if the town should say yes, that's not the end of the game. Planning and zoning must approve this. Zoning Board of Appeal must approve this. Inland Wetlands, if it's relevant, must approve this. And the P&Z must address the issue of whether the town plan of conservation and development needs to be amended before this can happen. There are a tremendous amount of safeguards all along the way. The town boards and commissions have to look at this.
Mr. Weiner, the one thing I would ask is why the town, as the board, is proposing a radical shift in use from our plan of conservation and development. If the town came before the townspeople and said, we want to sell the 17 acres to the Toll Brothers as single-family home development, you probably wouldn't have a room full of people, because that would be in compliance with our plan of conservation development as it stands. You are actually going against what the plan of conservation development requires, because the property doesn't meet the basic requirements to even have an age-restricted home. It cites that it has to have public water and public sewer, which it doesn't. And it does not have public sewer, because I remember, no, it doesn't. Public sewer is down Fountain Street, because it is not at the property.
Toll Brothers has looked at that, and they said that it's not a difficult thing for them to do.
But it's not,
We're going to take, you've already had a chance to speak, so let's let someone else who hasn't had a chance.
Mr. Weiner, you are stating incorrect facts. It is not up to the Town Plan and Zoning Commission to decide whether or not the Town Plan of Conservation and Development has to be updated in order to change the zoning. Because I'm sure, as you're fully aware, Connecticut General Statute 124 states that before you can contemplate any change to your zoning, it has to first be established in your town plan of conservation and development. So let's establish that first of all. What you said is absolutely not correct. Now the next thing is, if the town plan of conservation and development were otherwise stated, or otherwise provided for, You would have a compass by which you could establish what kind of development you want to have. But you are way out of sync with what the town plan of conservation and development is, and you're approaching it from a totally backwards perspective. You are going out, looking without a compass to engage in discussions with the developer to establish a non-conforming use that is inconsistent with the zoning and inconsistent with the town plan, and if you were to go through all of that, you would still be rezoning one parcel of land in the middle of another zone, thereby creating a spot zone, which I'm sure as you're aware of in Connecticut General Statute 124, that is not to be allowed. So this thing gets very, very messy, and you are only making it worse by stating non-truths. Thank you.
I don't think I stated that.
Judy Cooper, 51 Hopewood Drive in Woodbridge. I just have one simple question. On November 30th, you said there's going to be a vote. How many people, representatives of the town, have to show up for that to carry or to be defeated?
You need a quorum of 100.
So if 100 people show up,
You have a quorum, and then whatever action is taken is legal.
but of the 100, do you need a majority?
Majority, I'm sorry, yeah, 51.
And do most people in town know that there's a vote taking place on that night?
Not yet.
Oh, we sent a letter out to all the townspeople, you should be getting it tomorrow.
Why wouldn't that be in a referendum, so if somebody can't come that night, they would have had the whole day to vote and not just 2 hours?
That's a possibility to have a referendum.
But do we have the option to change it from that 2-hour vote tonight?
Referendum?
To a
You have to
referendum?
do a petition. There has to be a petition filed with the town clerk to remove the issue from the special town meeting and have it placed on a machine for a vote by the entire town during regular voting hours, 6
And the
in the
last
morning.
question is, why November 30th? It's between holidays and everything else when people may not be around. Who chose that date? Is there something contingent upon Toll Brothers accepting this proposal? Why November 30th? Today, it's only 3 weeks away.
Well, what date would you suggest?
A date that, no, I'm serious.
No, I mean, I just, November 30th or December 15th, I mean,
I'm just asking you why that date was chosen with 3 weeks' notice between now and then.
the Board of Selectmen acted, I think, on October 12 on this procedure, so it's 6 weeks after that.
Okay.
There's an opportunity for public discussion on it, November 15th. Tonight there's discussion, so.
But is there enough time to get a referendum on this?
There is, yes, there is.
Before she steps down, is there another meeting, an interim meeting before the 30th?
There's a public information session on November 15th.
Would you like to announce that? And also, can we hold it some other place where
It's gonna be
I don't
held
have to stand up for 2 hours?
in the center.
Yeah, why wasn't that there tonight?
We didn't anticipate it.
Yes.
Roger Sherman, Fairview Road.
I'm not disabled, or disabled.
I don't care. We have a beautiful website, nice barn, historical houses.
Very kind.
I don't think the 3-story condos fit into that. Not at all. I moved here for a charming town, nice rolling roads. I live in that area. I walk around Woodbridge Country Club. It's a beautiful facility. I'm glad that we bought it, I'm paying a little extra taxes, so be it. We have a conversation. We love this town. We just love it. And if you put in that development, the sewer line that came in was only built there to serve Woodbridge Country Club. Is that, has anybody checked that line? Is it gonna be able to accept another 58, lines on that? And we're gonna be responsible for maintaining that line, repair it. If that line goes, that's gonna be $1 million. No problem at all. You gotta move the cell tower, 400,000. That brings, we're gonna get 1.6 million now.
1.8.
Oh, 1.8, okay, excuse me. But, that's only a dime in the bucket. We're not gonna really make out with Toll Brothers. Not at all. I'd rather just leave things as is, get somebody to maintain the course, and let things go. How far apart are we with the tenant that we have there now?
There's no tenant.
His contract ends in December, and we're not going to, our negotiations ended at impasse.
there's no
But-
reopening negotiations.
There's others. There are other ways to do this for another vendor similar to Mr. Manchetti, or for the town itself to run it.
Yeah, let's
Like
ride,
I'm-
if we get another tenant to ride it out for just another couple of years, the economy will get better, we'll have better options then.
That's a
Let's not like-
possibility, and through this golf commission, if we establish that, they would be ones to coordinate that and make those recommendations to the Board of Selectmen.
Can I respectfully
No,
ask
no,
you-
let's, you've had a chance now, are there other people here that would like to talk? Phyllis Janelle, please.
Yes,
I would like to see, could I go back to the golf course?
Yes,
That I
that's the subject of this.
Yeah, hi, I'm Phyllis Chanel, Fisher Street Drive, nice to meet you, I'd like to do the golf course too. I guess, first of all, I'm sorry I'm late, but couldn't find a parking space. I think that people have to understand what it really takes to run a golf course. It takes an enormous amount of money, it takes an enormous amount of knowledge, it takes an enormous amount of time, and I've been trying to figure out if it's not going to be MDM. I do not understand, and by the way, I chaired recreation for many years, and I spend a lot of time on the golf course, truthfully. I worked hard to be able to
That's
do
an
that.
understatement.
It takes a lot to run a golf course, and it takes a lot of money to run a golf course. And I'm trying to figure out why the town wants to get involved with the golf authority. How are they going to run a golf course? I don't get it, and it's not just a golf course, it is a golf course, it is a swimming pool, it is tennis courts, it is a building in dire need of repair. I still think the elevator's not fixed. I don't need it, but I do know that the pros have had to carry up elderly people to functions. I think that this is something that we really have to think about. We need a third party, not a golf authority in this town. I don't think we want to be in that business. I really don't. It concerns me. And I will say that you should all come and take a walk now on the golf course. It looks beautiful. It's been raked. The sand traps are done. The trees have been picked up as best they can. I just think that we have to be very careful about who is going to run this golf course, because I'm not sure that the town of Woodbridge wants to be in the golf course business.
Yes, sir?
Robert Adams, 25 Pumpkin Patch. Would it be possible to sell the golf course to one of the park commissions and get state funding that way in order to conserve it?
I don't believe there's any state money available for anything of this sort, unfortunately. Yes, sir.
Jay Alpert, 96 Beecher Road. I spoke at the last meeting, and apparently I was quoted as saying that the development would...
Speak up, please.
That's not an amplifier.
That doesn't work.
You just have to speak up.
All right, I'll do my best. What I said was I thought the proposed change to the first hole would impact the golf course. Apparently that has been changed since then, and I don't know how that plays out. So I would still reserve judgment on that. At the time, we were talking about 19 acres of sale. Now I'm hearing 17 acres. That's what happened, that the scope has reduced? The money is still the same, but the area, the acreage is
Toll
less?
Brothers heard the comments by Mr. Rosen and I think yourself at the last meeting about changing that first hole, and they felt that it would be much better to keep the golf course exactly the way it is and not make any changes. They've also been able to reduce, they think that they would like to reduce the 58 units to 50, 55. They were telling us between 52 and 58, depending on the topography of the property. They're now down to 55, which would be a little less dense, not a lot less dense, but a little bit less dense, and pay up $2.2 million. They're going to get back to us over the weekend on that.
Is there a preliminary site plan that could be available for comment? It's
Sure.
so hard to look at it.
Yes, we do, I think they have something. I don't know how much, but we can ask them to get something for next week.
Before next week, that would
Before the 15th.
be more helpful. Everybody here seems to be talking about everything but what the agenda is.
Golf authority.
Right.
Bring us back.
Well, I would like to know how one gets selected to be on this golf authority, what requirements that person needs, what is going to be the charge to this authority or commission? Are they going to be, what it sounds like is you're setting them up to run a golf course, which, following the last two speakers, I would concur that this is not our business to run a golf course. But I would want to know what the charge is to this authority. Does it go beyond the golf course?
It does not.
It does not?
No. The charge is outlined in this proposed Woodbridge Golf Authority, I think that.
Okay, so all this notion about reducing the debt is not for this commission?
They wouldn't be, no. Other than running the golf course and whatever revenues are realized from that, you know, but.
Right.
It's a very simple concept of just overseeing.
I'm not opposed to a concept. I'm opposed to misinformation. I think
we all are.
I think you do yourself a disservice by scheduling a meeting in a room that can hold 50 people.
We didn't anticipate the number of people who would be here.
And the other thing is, you must have a copy of this.
We do.
This is pretty scary stuff. It would be easy for you, if you have the information, to put out bullet points that would.
We can do that.
We can do that.
Would reduce this to its proper perspective. I'd like to see us succeed. I'd like it to see the course remain as a golf course.
That's our
I'd like
intention.
everybody to be happy.
Good. Thank you. Yes.
I have heard a rumor that the reason the negotiations with the man who was running the course stopped was because you had only offered him a one-year contract, which was not feasible for someone who is trying to make money and run a place. If you don't have more than a year, you cannot have parties and weddings or whatever else is there. Was that a reason why things fell through?
No.
What was the reason?
The reason is he hasn't been paying us.
Why?
Well, I thought you were being paid and you had money
We were
in
paid up
excess.
through, what's the date, June?
We were paid through July.
Through July.
And why did he stop paying you?
His reason, and you'll have to ask him, but the reason he stated.
What reason did he give you?
The reason he gave us, he thought that the condition of the country club wasn't sufficient to allow him to continue.
So,
Even
was
though
there
he's been
an
holding
agreement?
events there.
Did you have an agreement with him that you were going to do something with the
We had
building?
No, we had a short-term agreement. He made capital improvements, and we did for the duration of this 3-year relationship we've had with him. Going forward, we were negotiating with a 20-year deal with him.
Why 20 years?
That's what he wanted.
That was what he wanted?
Correct.
And so what fell through?
Jerry, do you want to get into the details?
You know, the price became a real problem, and what he was willing to pay us, I think it was felt that it was insufficient for us to meet our obligations, even on debt service and principal.
Was it changed from what he had originally agreed to pay you?
Yes, it was changed from what was been in the past, and I really, you know, there's still a lot of negotiations going on with him about some of the cleaning up and ending some of the relationships, so there's a lot that we really can't be talking about, but he originally wanted a 20-year deal, and he wanted to pay, I think I can say this, he wanted to buy the club immediately at the beginning of the 20-year deal and pay us over 20 years. In other words, really he was leasing the property, and at the end of 20 years he would give us $1, and that would be the end of it, but he would own it right away. There were some legal concerns as to the viability of that kind of proposal on the town of Woodbridge and whether we would be adequately protected. We obtained an opinion from an expert to review the proposal, a very well-respected expert, and he came back and said this is not in the best interest of the town for a variety of reasons. We would have loved to have had that deal if it was economically feasible and legally protecting the interests of the town of Woodbridge. We consulted an expert, and we were told that it was not in our best interest to do that. We could get hurt in the long run. So we took that off the table, and then we were trying to negotiate a shorter-term lease. The finances just didn't work for the town, and it didn't work for...
But now you have no finances.
No, but we think we will have finances. The
When?
point, we have...
No, not with Toll Brothers.
It is, no one is abandoning the operation of this club, and we do believe that it could be made to be as viable as it has been the last 3 years. We just want to get into the business of going, I think the board wants to get into the business of going about beginning with the opportunity to make this profitable, offer a terrific service for the residents of Woodbridge to play golf, swim, and play tennis, and make some money to pay our debt service. We have a problem in operating this because we started off with a $7 million debt. That makes it very hard to make money and be at a level where we're not losing money. So it is a challenge. There's no question it is a challenge, but everybody knew it would be a challenge when we bought it for $7 million. And we bought it because there was an overwhelming vote to buy it. And keep in mind, there were 2 other professional developers who were bidding, and we would have had no control over what they would have put there. So that's the reason we bought it. We are trying, I think the Board of Selectmen is trying to make this as good as possible. No one wants to hurt the town, put the town at risk, or give the authority or the commission more power than they should have. It is just an opportunity to move forward with the operation of the country club.
Well, I personally thought that was bought to be open space golf carts. I've lived on Baldwin Road for 78 years, all my life. And this used to be a farming community. And it's been built up with a lot of houses. I don't think we have any space for condominiums. Not anywhere up there near the golf course. It's not something that anybody wants. And I'm sorry that you've done it the way you've done it. It's kind of behind the barn. It's not done the way I would think you would do things, out in the open. And I'm Edith Blockner, and I live on Baldwin Road.